What's up, y'all? Today I'm going to be addressing the fine-tuning argument that is used to support the idea that, Christianity is that would make Christianity more true or show better evidence that there was an intelligent creator. And I used to use this argument too when I was a Christian, but I think it's because I didn't read up on any counterexamples or any conflicting views on the argument. But now, sometime after, I've read more dissenting views on the fine-tuning argument, and it's actually a really interesting topic. But the the thing about using the fine-tuning argument is that it's not a well thought out argument, because when you're saying something is like finely tuned, you're saying that it's well tuned, right? So if I have a guitar, I got a guitar, you know, I can tell you whether or not it's tuned well because I have a tuner. I have other guitars to compare it with to say whether or not this guitar is well tuned, right? Like I can say like this guitar is very well crafted because I could show you examples of other guitars I have that are less well crafted. They don't look as good and they don't sound as good. So that's how I can know that this guitar is well tuned. It's a relative argument. It's not an absolute argument. If I were to go to a place where there are only a couple of guitars, then maybe my guitars that I'm less proud of would actually be looked at as better crafted relative to the worst guitars, if that makes sense. Because the whole finely tuned argument, that's a relative. You're making a relative statement there. It's not like an absolute thing. Like I can't absolutely say that my guitar is the best because that's just a matter of opinion, really. And not only that, if you can bring facts into it as well, like maybe my guitar produces the best range of frequencies and it's the most well-rounded sound, it has the most consistent volume, and it has the most high-quality wood. But you can't really say that like it's the best guitar without having other guitars to compare it to. Like for example, if I create an instrument that only has like one string, we'll call it like the Bacra, all right? And I say like this Bacra is extremely well crafted. It's the best Bacra, It's better than any other Bacra. It's very well crafted and it really stands out. Well, it's like there's no way to really argue with that because it's the only one. So it's like everything I'm kind of saying is just basically a matter of opinion. It's not really. I'm not comparing it to anything. So it doesn't really make sense to say that my Bacra is the best Bacra if it's the only one. It's like, okay, like what are you comparing it to? Like if we were to go throughout history and remove every single professional American football player from existence except for Tom Brady, it doesn't really make sense anymore for us to call him the GOAT because there's not any other players for him to be better than, So my point is that if we only have one universe that we're currently aware of, the one that we're in, then how can we actually know where it ranks on the scale of universes? Because when you make this fine-tuning argument, then you're like saying, well, you have finely tuned up here you have this tunedness scale, and here you have finely tuned. Then you have average tuning. Then you have like poorly tuned and then obtusely tuned. or something. But on this tunedness scale, it doesn't make sense to use it because there's only one thing that we have here. We only have one universe. So a scale isn't any good if there's nothing to compare it to. You know, like, anytime we say whether something is good or bad, it's comparing it to other things. Like, if you have a good car, that means it's better than other cars that are somewhere out there that you've maybe previously owned. Like, if you're at a good weight, it's because your current weight is better compared to previous weights you've been at. It's all a relative term. It's all relative. Anytime you're making comparisons or asserting like these qualities, these human imposed qualities upon an object, like if these are good speakers, okay, well then I would have to have other speakers to compare them to say that these are actually better. So it's the same thing with the universe. You have to have another universe to compare it with to say that ours is a good universe, or that it's finely tuned, because that's implying that there's untuned universes out there, or less finely tuned universes out there we don't actually know. Like, if I say I have a finely tuned guitar, well, that implies a scale of tuning. It implies that it can be less tuned. It can be less finely tuned. Like, I could find a less finely tuned guitar out there, or there's been less finely tuned guitars to exist. So when you make that tunedness argument with the universe, you're implying that there are other universes to compare it to, even though we don't have any evidence of other universes. So, but I would say on our current trajectory in the exploration of space, we're going to find another universe. Because, I mean, I don't know, 200 years ago, we didn't even see anything outside of our own solar system or our galaxy, but now we can see, like, into other solar systems light years away. So, assuming we continue on that trend, which I don't know why we wouldn't, we'll probably find another universe out there in 100,000 years or something. 100 or 1,000 years. I don't know about 100,000. But what if it turns out that we actually do find another universe out there? And what if it actually is more finely tuned? What if it actually is better designed for life? And it's like, there's some, I don't know if it's observer bias or what you would call it, but it is a little silly to say, like, well, our universe was designed specifically to, like, be able to support this, to support human life, but, like, the only way we could have observed it if that is if it were to happen that way. Like, there could have been a million other instances of universes that were not finely tuned enough to support life, that we would never have observed because life couldn't have arisen. So there could be millions of universes out there that we've yet to discover that have never allowed life to arise. But we can't observe them because we haven't reached that far out with our exploration, but also because our life didn't arise in those universes, you know? So we're extremely biased to say that this is a finely tuned universe just for us to exist, because we wouldn't have known what it was like to not exist. And we can say, like, oh, our universal constants are so, like, perfect. But again, perfection, that's like a scalar term. Like, if you have a perfect constant, that implies less perfect constants, which we don't have evidence of. Like, if we someday discover all the other universes out there, it could very well turn out that they actually have different universal constants that operate that universe, and then it might turn out that actually our constants are not so finely tuned and are not so perfect. They were to us because we didn't know the difference. You know, we didn't know of any other universe, or we didn't have anything to compare it with. You know. So that kind of opened my eyes a little bit, up to the whole fine-tuning argument whenever I was reading about this, because it's a really good point. And it's also a unique point too, because for most things that we have in our life and on earth, we have other things to compare it with. Like, I can't think of anything else that is like the universe, in the sense that there's only like one that we're aware of. Like, there's really nothing else like the universe to compare it with, you know? Like, we think our physics that we have in this universe are good, but that's because it's the only like set of physics laws that we have, you know? There's nothing else to compare it with. Like, it's good to us because, you know, we're alive, and as far as we know, maybe this is the best way to live life, is under these laws of physics and thermodynamics. But maybe it's not. We don't have anything else to compare it with. We're not aware yet of the other universes that might have different laws of thermodynamics or physics or any laws at all. So we don't know that, in fact, like, that universe actually could be better. It could be better. We don't know. So it's just silly to outright assume that we have the finely tuned universe, you know, because we don't know that. Yeah. I don't know what you call it, illusion of rarity or observer bias. Um, another funny thing is, like, how do we actually know that the universe is finely tuned, or even that it's like well tuned at all, even without considering the possibility of universes? Because what if there actually used to be human life, like, on all the other planets in the solar system? Or let's say that life had at least attempted to arise on different planets in the solar system. But it turns out, like, these planets were not actually well tuned enough to support that life. Why haven't we considered that? Like, we think it's good that only one out of the planets in our solar system supports life. Like, that's good to us because we don't know the difference. But in reality, what if there's other universes out there that have solar systems that actually support life on all of the planets in the solar system, you know? So it's kind of like a survivorship bias, because we only have one planet supporting life. We don't know the difference, so we think that it's good. But the thing is, we wouldn't actually know whether or not life had tried to rise up on these other planets because they didn't survive. So it's kind of a mind bender, but it very well is possible that at one point a long time ago, a life form had attempted to rise up on the planet Mercury, but because of the high temperatures there, it wasn't able to survive. Same thing with Mars and Venus and Neptune. Who knows, maybe life had existed there at some point, but then, you know, the settings of the planet just didn't allow for the life to continue to survive. We wouldn't know. So it's just silly to make the argument that because we have life on one of the planets on our solar system, that it's finely tuned for us. When in reality, there could have been life on all the other planets, and we wouldn't know because the planets killed the life, you know? So it's a very unique way that you kind of have to look at things, because you have to really step outside of what we already know and what we comprehend about our universe to realize that, well, we might just not know everything, and we're extremely biased as well. But yeah. Later, dudes.